Lost Splat episode. We have here live tonight with our local paintball dealer, Matt.
Hello.
So, Matt, I just got some questions I want to ask you, talk to you about some things. So, how long have you been playing paintball?
I started in 96 or 97, so about 20 years. My brothers all played, their buddies all played, and paintball was huge at the time, so it was the thing to do.
So what kind of guns did you guys play with back then?
At the time, pretty much all that was available to us locally. This is kind of pre-internet. Walmart and maybe some backyard dealers. So really all we had was pumps, a lot of pumps. And if there was a semi-auto, it was just a blowback. No such thing as HPA to us at the time. It was kind of cutting edge.
So you guys used, was it like, what was the brands that you guys used then? It was like Brass Eagle then, or?
Actually, a lot of the traditional brands like Crossman and Daisy made CO2, and actually I think they had some guns. Actually, I think some of the earlier paintball guns were actually Crossman, some of the earlier designs. But yeah, Brass Eagle was like the brand, and they still don't get the credit they deserve. They're gone now or merged with Key. But yeah, that got a lot of people into the game, and a lot of their guns that came with instructional videos on how to play and actually showed people playing and having fun. I think Fred Schultz was a big celebrity back then.
So what kind of safety stuff did you guys use? Did you have, I know you guys probably didn't have the i5 or anything that fancy, but what did you guys use to, for safety?
There wasn't as much, if at any. Like a chronograph, for example, we didn't get one until years and years and years later. Actually, we didn't get a chronograph until recently. At the time, you would tell how hard someone was shooting based on how loud it was, which is ridiculous now. But we would shoot trees to see who was shooting the most bark off. We'd hold the guns level and shoot, and people would try to cheat and aim their guns down. We're trying to see who was shooting the farthest, and that's whose gun was too hot. And some of the guns, couldn't shoot far enough, like a Brass Eagle Talon, which is what a lot of us had at the time. They were affordable. I think they were only like $60 for a long time. And they only used 12 grams. You couldn't even put a constant air on it without an adapter. You couldn't adjust the velocity on them. So they kind of just were what they were. So once you had a gun that had an adjustable velocity, that was a big deal at the time. And those were the good guns. So and then as far as going more into safety, so that's just the chrono and how the guns shot. Masks, a lot of us didn't have them. We were using shop goggles, or if you did have a mask, it was foam. Like literally, it was made of foam. And if you were a really big baller and had a player's kit, the mask in there was just like a sheet of plastic, and you kind of just put the strap in, and it was not a good strap. And you kind of just like put it on your head, and it was just kind of like a sheet of, imagine like taking like a big mouse pad, putting it on your face with a tiny little goggle. The goggle was about 2 inches high and like 4 or 5 inches wide, like just the size of your eyes. They fogged so bad you could barely see. So that's why a lot of guys really didn't like them.
So how has all that changed though through the time when you started to play to, let's say, now? What enhancements or what big things have changed with the safety aspect of it? What's some things that's changed with the guns? How has paintball changed just kind of through the years of you playing?
The sport's a lot safer now. Chronos are everywhere, netting's everywhere. People are a lot more serious about the masks now. I remember back then, not just us, but everybody would. People would shoot at each other with no masks on and just laugh it up, and I don't know how we survived, but I'm pretty sure getting shot in the eye or face was a lot more common back then. Just no one cared. It was all fun. People were a lot more invincible back then. And you didn't see this stuff on the internet because the internet at the time, if you did have it, it was mostly text. You went to a web page and read. So you didn't have A&S gear or any of that. You actually ordered, I remember 1888 paintball in the magazines. They do the full 2-page spreads, selling spiders or Tippmann or whatever. You just called the phone number. There wasn't even a website until later on. Then you actually paid and everything over the phone. As far as the guns and everything, they've slowed down a lot. They actually got fast. So around 05, 06, I remember unlimited ramping was all the rage back then, and there was a big arms race, and now it's more mag fed or mechanical or 10 balls per second cap. So we're in a kind of a happy spot right now as far as that goes.
So what's the difference if you were a new player starting out? So what's the difference between mechanical, electric, pump? I mean, what's the differences in the guns?
So pump, you're gonna run into guys that most likely would ball every weekend. That need to have a case of paint last. They're more efficient and a lot of people practice with them because you have to aim every shot, and you do get a little bit more satisfaction when you actually hit someone. So there's lots of reasons that pumps are still out there, and they're fun in their own way, just like the other two styles of marker. And mag-fed also. Mag-fed, people like having to reload a lot in that style of play because it doesn't actually slow the game down. It kind of speeds it up. You're more tactical. You actually have to, use teamwork to try to get objectives because you can't just, shoot a lane at somebody and get them. If you're playing with a pump, well, you could if you're fast enough, but you actually have to work together and try to get these objectives because, the guns are so slow. Now, for mechanical guns, that would be more considered
like semi-auto, right?
Right. Your blowback guns, your autocockers, typically something that wouldn't take batteries. A lot of guys like those more for the classic feel. You get no batteries required. Some of them operate really cool, like the auto mag, the autococker, and the blowbacks. Each function completely differently. And then that's another one too. You can get a case of paint and pretty much play all day and not really have to worry about it. I mean, the auto mags can be fast, but as a rule of thumb, you're gonna be able to play a lot longer at a competitive level to you. And then electro, of course, being the more common ones you'd see now: the minis, the axes, the E-techs, the G-techs, so on and so forth. Those guns, people usually just run them in semi-auto nowadays, capped at 10, and they'll burn up paint a lot faster. And actually, you see a lot of those guys will actually run a pump also. When they get low on paint, they'll switch over and play that last bag of paint the rest of the day with a pump so they don't run out.
Yeah, I know that, right now it's just playing with us locally. I know that quite a few guys are now switching to the pump. I know our friend Mike Sagaster just got a nice pump, and I know that I think a couple of the other guys that we play with got some pumps, but I think actually James Pullum, I think he has a pump now too.
Yeah, James from the first podcast, yes.
Yeah, so I think he has a pump now, and he also has an electric. So it just kind of basically what your style is or what you're looking for, and how you're wanting to play. I know that there's
absolutely.
I know that there's we've played speedball and woodsball. What's the difference between either one of those?
Speedball and woodsball, it's two different types of game that people play. So speedball would be what most people would actually see the sport as when they're driving by or see it on TV or on the internet. Speedball is what they see, and it's more people. It's a faster game. They shoot a lot of paint quicker. That could be a stereotype because people play pump on speedball fields, but that's a stereotype. People think it's machine gunning, more competitive, and it absolutely is more competitive because the fields are symmetrical. It can be easily reffed.
They have a lot of pro teams, though, with the speedball.
Right, exactly. But really, the woodsball is more the lifeblood of the sport. I mean, the majority of players are doing woodsball, and even if you look at these paintball, vloggers on YouTube, the guys with a lot of views are the woods ball guys. And MagFed's taking off big time, and that's, again, all more scenario and woods ball.
I know that we've got a lot of big scenario events that I've got them posted on the page, from Sherwood to our local, like even Indianapolis has some scenarios going on. I know Battlegrounds has some stuff in April. So that's more of your woods ball scenario type games, right? As your speedball is more of your MXXL and your NXL and those guys that, five-man teams, they're going out there, you're watching them on the airfields and this and that. Would that be about right?
Right. You're exactly right. And not only that, but there's actually competitive woods ball leagues too, like the UWL plays all over the place, and you can run some local games then, and people practicing around here. But really, I mean, on the local scene, there's local fields that'll do tournaments and stuff in the woods, here. So really, whatever kind of paintball you want to play, you can find the niche. And I know that's the two common ones is woods ball and speedball, but there's so much more. There's rec ball, which might be like, bunkers in the woods with objectives, or scenario ball, which could be whatever the scenario is, spaceships or
like the Dread of Legend ones that was down in Florida.
The pirate theme, yeah. And that you could run into anything. They're not as creative as I feel like they used to be. But some of them are still pretty good. It depends on who's putting it on. But they used to get really into it back in the day. And I remember scenario ball in the 90s and going into probably the mid-2000s, everyone was dressed up, and into the scenario. And, they'd stop everybody and do a little play in the middle of the game, and you don't see that anymore. A lot of scenarios, especially in this area, they're played more like just big games. You might see a few guys into the scenario with costumes, but the majority is just going to be wearing gear and just playing ball, because it's fun being out there with a lot of people. It's exciting.
So if I was a new player coming to your store, what kind of gear, speaking of gear, what kind of gear would you recommend a noob like me or somebody else out there that has never played paintball and, stop by your store? What would you recommend a setup for them?
I get that a lot, and I get random texts when I'm at work or whatever, people asking, for example, I have $100. What's the best gun I can get to come play with you guys? Or I have $200. And really, that's not the best way to go at it, and I try my best to steer people the right way when they come in. And the reason you don't want to spend all your money on the gun is because when you actually get out there, you're not going to have a good hopper to feed it. You're not going to be able to afford the compressed air tank to be able to, have compressed air, or you're not going to have a nice mask. You spend all that money on the gun, and then you grab your dad's old, Winchester or woodchuck mask, or the Woodstalker mask, or just the goggle. You get out there and you're gonna be miserable. You'll be fogged up the whole time. So my big recommendation is have a mask first, because that's really, you have that on your face the whole time, and a comfortable mask will keep you from wanting to take it off, which goes back to a big safety concern. And then that's something that, again, people are a lot more strict about nowadays, and a lot more willing to participate in the enforcement of that. You'll see players literally run straight at someone else just to slam their mask back on their face if they take it off. So just get a nice mask and then go from there. Because really, if you had to rent, you're better off renting the gun than throwing your nice air tank and hopper and mask on than the other way around, wearing someone's sweaty old mask.
So, if you were, like I said, so you would say start with the mask first, get a nice mask. I know I've got a Vulcan Identity I got from you a while back. What brand or what, if I had, to say what mask would you recommend first to get? That's a fair price. It's a good mask that, doesn't fog up as much.
Okay. That's going to come down to, really what you're looking for and the size of your head and maybe how old you are. And I know some of the more popular ones now, like the i4, the Virtue Vios, etc. A lot of those for a new player, especially in this area, is more specific to the local scene here in Greensburg and surrounding. A lot of people are not going to spend over 100 or 150 or 200 on a mask. They're looking more at the low end. So the i4 is going to definitely most likely be out of the question for them unless they pick up a used one. They're just too much money. A lot of people here just play with guns that are around the 100, 150 range and playing with a single pane lens mask. So I recommend just trying them on, seeing what's comfortable for you and what's going to fit. Some people in i4 might literally not work. It's just so tight. It is not going to work. That's a smaller mask for those of you that don't know what a i4 is. Really, for the price and what you get, the JT Pro Flex, which is now the E-Flex, is always a good one. But it has the single strap and whatnot going for it.
I know you got you've got some, what is it, the MI5s and the MI7s here.
Yeah, the MI5, even though it's my most popular selling mask, I do not recommend it. It sells a lot because, again, people come in with that set price. I have $150. I need a whole setup. I'm not going a penny over. And getting the nice mask literally just takes them out from being able to get a gun or compressed air. So the MI7 and MI9 being around the $40, $50 range gets the nod. I mean, they have the thermal lens, a visor. By having the visor, if you drop it on the ground and it rolls, it'll roll around on that visor so the lens doesn't, hit that gravel and get scratched up. Another thing is going through the brush in the woods. Having that visor will you can actually brush leaves off with it, so not hitting the lens directly or sticks. Probably the best bang for the buck right now for masks. I'd say the new Virtue Vio Ascend or the Valken Identity. The new Ascend goggle, which if that is the correct name, I believe that's what it is. It just came out, and I think it's around the $80, $90 range, which again might be a little high for people around here. But the Valken Identity being around $60, it has a double strap, so it's great for younger, old people. It always fits tight. Has very nice foam and ear foam on it, so you're not going to get bloodied ears like those old masks. Plenty of face coverage. The lenses are cheap. It gets the nod big time, but it has no visor. So that's really the only drawback. If you're someone that scratches all your lenses up and you don't take care of it in a nice bag or something, you're gonna wish you had a visor. So that's the only bad thing about the Identity. But that's actually what I wear. This for value, the Identity's a lot of mask for a few $20 bills, and it's brand new.
So would you recommend, we were talking about air earlier, so would you recommend CO2 or high-pressured air?
Again, that depends. So, I mean, a lot of the lower budget guys who maybe play once or twice a year, they'll go CO2 just because, that's what they have. They don't want to update their gear. They're still shooting old view loaders from back when Walmart used to sell gear. The CO2 you're going to get more shots with. But those guns also have the most problems because the CO2 is so hard on the O-rings and seals. HPA, so even though you get fewer shots, it's just better everything else. You don't have to re-chrono as much because the pressure doesn't change nearly like what CO2 would.
You can only play in certain weather, though, with the CO2 and HPA, from what I remember, is that you can play it, doesn't matter how hot or cold it is outside. I mean, it's going to shoot the same every time.
Right, so CO2 is not a regulated tank when it comes out. I mean, it's 1 degree Fahrenheit is 11 psi to CO2, so 70 degrees roughly is going to be about 800 psi. So that's awesome, but in the summer when it's 100 degrees and the tanks are black, their pressure's just sky high, well over 1,000, and in the wintertime, when it's 30 degrees out, the guns might have trouble recocking, where they're not getting enough air pressure. If they're sprung for 800 and you've only really putting out 400, 450, they literally might not recock.
So, how did you get your start into wanting to run your own paintball shop and, run your own business here in town?
Good question. It's not something I really want to do growing up. I mean, what really started it was probably 2012. I scheduled a paintball game for my birthday at my house, and I got on ansgear.com and ordered like 6 cases of paint, 7 or 8 guns, all different kinds of spiders, Tipman, Azodin, hoppers, brand new masks for everybody. And I told everyone it was free. All you had to do was come play. And I invited all my friends, people who I liked, some people I just wanted to shoot. I invited probably 60 people, and that was a real wake up call for me, because you didn't have to pay for it. A lot of people say they won't play because it's expensive. I was literally paying their way. It'd be 100% free. All you had to do was come play. And I sat out there on the tailgate of my truck, loaded up with all this paintball stuff, and I waited, and we were all supposed to meet at 10:30, and that came and went, and I waited till 11, and I got a couple texts, from people saying they weren't going to make it. 11:30, noon, 1 o'clock came and went. 2 o'clock, I just went back up to the house and unloaded it all. So I had all this equipment brand new, and cases and cases of paint, and had all the bunkers built, ready to play, and no one showed. So to me, the excuse, not having the money, is not an excuse. If you want to do something, you'll find a way to do it. So if you want to play paintball, you're gonna go play paintball. So
yeah.
Period.
So how did you? I mean, what then made you decide that, hey, I'm gonna open a shop. I'm gonna, sell this stuff?
So that being kind of a wake up call for me. So I was bummed out at the time, because that was something I really wanted to do, something I really enjoyed. I didn't want to have to drive 2 hours one way to play. Getting up at 5 in the morning to be somewhere at 8 or 9. I didn't want it to take a whole day, though. I wanted to play all the time, and I wanted to do it cheaply. But I had no one into it. I didn't know anybody. Facebook wasn't too big at the time. PB Nation was pretty much dead, as far as local posters. So I needed a way to just find a new group to run with. And I met up with a few guys like in Westport, North Vernon, Seymour, for example. And we'd meet up, and it'd be 5 or 6 of us, and we ended up and played a couple times, and it broke up. And there's a group in Westport going strong, like 20 or 25 people, and then they played 2 or 3 times, and that group broke up. So I had all this gear I'd accumulated, and I had 20 CO2 tanks and probably like 15 guns and all these brand new masks. So my crazy idea then was to just buy this little building here in town. It'd been on sale for years, and we called the guy and made an offer, and they, went back once or twice. But yeah, they accepted it, and we picked it up. And when I first opened the store, it was actually all my stuff. It was my personal collection with some GI paint I had ordered with my uncle. Me and him were selling paint for about a year for the Hopeless Hollow Haunted Woods and whatnot, and for the Westport guys. So we'd already had paint, and I already had all this gear. So I literally started out with my own stuff. Was pretty much the start of Mad Matt's, and then the scene we have now. We talk to these guys all the time, and we're in a big Facebook chat group, and we have probably 20 or 30 local guys that are into it and playing all the time. So I'm proud of that, and I just want to keep it going, and because I don't want to find a new hobby. I don't want to do remote control cars. I don't want to, I don't want to play video games all the time. I want to go out and do this. I want to play some paintball. So that's what started.
I know last year when you had Mad Matt's official events last summer, I think you brought in about 30 people every event that you had, or pretty close to it. It was pretty good amount of people that would come down. Some people would do rentals. Some people had played a while. You get those guys from up in Indianapolis that would come down. Like our buddy James. They would come from all over. I know you would do a raffle and stuff, so that would bring in some of the crowd. So what makes Mad Matt's special and stand out in the local paintball scene?
Okay. What makes us stand out? So a lot of these people that came to Mad Matt's or still play with us and still play around here and this local scene, the guys we run with, a lot of them never have gone to a real paintball field. I know I drove several people to BG myself over the years, and Paintball Indiana, which is no longer a thing. At least not what it was. So to them, having compressed air and wearing masks and referees and chronographing and prizes and official paint and sanctioned paint, people not bringing just crazy old paintballs, it was refreshing. And a lot of people, to them, it was the best paintball that they've ever had. And because to these people, backyard ball for years and years is all they've ever played. So if they went up to White River or BG and did a birthday party or something, that's not paintball to a lot of these people because they've never done official ball like that, or like what we were doing. A lot of these people they would show up with just the ricketyest gear, literally goggles or a Tippmann 98 or just an old paintball pistol. This is a motley crew, and then to be able to come to Mad Matt's and play for $10 or $15 and have rental gear and real up-to-date masks. People would show up with foam masks, and I would hand them a real mask to use. Or same with the guns. They would just show up with such old equipment, and I would hand them something from 2016, and there's whoa, because they'd never seen this stuff. So compressed air was so big it blew a lot of these people's minds. And what really makes us stand out is we are traditional ball. I mean, literally everyone out there, we all know each other's first names. The games are just for fun. We almost always eat out there together. Again, like you said, we do the prizes at the end. First name basis. We don't have these random people showing up every time. The scene's so small. People would come out with their brothers, their sisters, their nieces and nephews. Their best friend. So it's just a nice tight knit crew. And every weekend, if we'd pull in 4 or 5 new people, and that's really what it was. We would have someone new every single weekend, and we just did a slow introduction every time to the point where just literally everyone knew everyone. And it's crazy looking at it today, just seeing you guys hanging out on Facebook. Like, you guys would have never met, and now you're going to the movies together, Buffalo Wings and Rings, and hanging out. So, and that's paintball for you. So, completely different backgrounds. You'll be out there playing with a hardcore 50-year-old biker and a 14-year-old kid, and now they're eating pizza together in Shelbyville, having a paintball chat. So that's heartwarming. So I think Mad Matt's really brings traditional 90s paintball to the 2000s, or not even in the 2000s. Excuse me, we're in the late 2010s now. The 90s weren't 10 years ago. You can't get that experience anywhere else. You can't get what many would call backyard ball, but being legit. As far as the chronographing being mandatory. Barrel socks, that is huge. I go to fields now that charge people, and barrel socks aren't required. People walking around on the field with no masks on. It's crazy. So just the barrel socks and the masks, and people get mad about it. They get mad that they have to have a barrel sock, but we don't allow anyone out there without one. Whether you're in the safe area or walking back at the end of the game, you have to have that barrel bag on.
And I know we just had, I think we were talking about it in the chat the other day, and there was a local field here that a kid got shot in the eye at, I think it was point blank range. because either they didn't have the sock on or they were using a barrel plug and it had come off. So yeah, safety is key when definitely playing out here or in general. It doesn't matter where you're playing at, whether it's Battlegrounds or White River Paintball or any of those other fields. Safety is a big thing because you're putting not only your life at risk, but somebody else's life at risk as well.
Right. Well, I wouldn't say your life, but getting messed up for sure. And I don't want to scare anybody, but I'd clear that rumor right away. So we had people that would show up with barrel plugs, and we wouldn't allow it. You know, you have to have an actual barrel sock. The plug, you know, especially like the hard plastic ones with like one O-ring, like the spider ones they used to have. That hard plastic, you know, one ball hitting that barrel plug, it's gonna fly out. Now your gun's hot, you know, in the safe area. Whereas that barrel sock is just going to bounce back and it's always going to stay on the barrel. So I actually talked to that kid that got shot in the eye, and it is true. What happened there, they did have a barrel sock on, and we think what happened, you know, based on his story, because, you know, we're all curious, we're all scared, you know, was the barrel sock just wasn't on tight, or it was just on the corner of the gun. It wasn't wrapped around it properly or something. We weren't there. So the barrel socks, you know, again, the same thing with the masks. You know, we constantly monitor, we constantly check that and make sure you have the barrel sock on properly. So safety's still definitely way better than what it was.
So what's the most important thing to know about playing paintball? Sort of the key points, or, you know, whether you're a new baller or you've been playing for years, what are the big takeaways from playing paintball?
You know, the big important thing is just have fun. You know, and I've been in that zone too, where I'm too competitive, and then I walk away not having fun because I expected, you know, so many tags, and I got shut out so many times and was upset. Sometimes you play better just slowing down and relaxing a little bit. So really what's important is find your niche, you know, whether it be woods ball, or you're the sniper ninja sneaky type, or you're the combat guy, or you just like running missions. You know, we talked about scenarios earlier, and there's guys that show up to those and they'll be out in the field with a mask on and playing, and they don't even have a gun. Like, to them it's funner to go to these paintball events and run objectives, you know, and be the hero. You can do that. So the most important thing to know with paintball is definitely to just have fun, find your play style, see what works for you, and capitalize on it and have fun. With your friends, especially with your friends. Bring your friends. You guys will remember this. I'm telling you. Playing Call of Duty is not the same as going out and actually doing something with your buddies. You will talk about it for years. Bring your buddies.
So with wrapping some stuff up here, Extravaganza is next week. That's the big. It's not a conference. It's a big. What's the word I'm looking for?
Trade show. Dealer only.
That's it.
Trade show.
And that's next, the 22nd. I think the 23rd. And dealers can go. They get invited to go. They bring somebody. Have you heard of anything new that's coming out, or anything that's new that's hitting the scene this year?
We definitely got a big gulp at World Cup. But the thing with the World Cup, they mostly just announced the higher end stuff, which for our local scene is not what we're into. So some of us hardcore guys are into that, the $2,000 guns and the $300 masks and the $300 hoppers. But the majority of the people here that's shooting these Tippmans and Azodens and other blowbacks, they want stuff that's affordable, that they feel like they can run out and get and not have to finance. So I know the big one that people are asking me about right now, the Valken Switch, which is the hopper, and the Valken Code, which is their new gun. What's another one? The i5 goggle. I think some people are excited about that, a little higher end goggle.
Now that's the one. Doesn't that have the pop-up screen on it that Bluetooths to your gun?
Yeah, you can have the heads-up display. If you have that goggle and the dye heads-up display. It can also sync with the Dye M2 if you have their module. Now, Dye did, I believe, release a statement saying they would have that available for possibly other markers and whatnot in the future. But we haven't. They haven't released anything yet. Obviously, that would be big news. Yeah. So what makes the code so exciting is the price point they announced around World Cup is going to be under $300.
And the code is it's going to be an electric gun, right?
Yes, it's an electronic spool valve gun. The regulator looks like it's inside the grip frame. The circuit board's in the front grip. So with that type of layout and with it being small, it's going to look like a mini Empire Mini, and it does. They said they made the body pretty heavy, or at least that's what I was hearing in the videos. So that's good. That'll reduce a lot of kick. I know people thought the Proton kicked pretty hard, which it did. It did feel like it kicked pretty good. Well, then when you weigh the Proton, you realize it's so much lighter than a lot of other guns. It's actually lighter than a Mini, but more comfortable because I feel the front grip is stretched out. But you don't hear about that because the Proton didn't get a lot of marketing done on it. Now, the Valken Switch is the new hopper. So it looks good. It's going to hold 200. The big selling points with it is it's like half the price of a Dye R2. Right now is what their target goal is. I don't think official pricing has been announced yet. But it will run on 3 AA's. So you're going to have a ton of juice in there. That thing's going to go all year, I'm sure.
Except for, well, what is it? The R2s take a 9-volt battery? Is that
no,
right?
the Dye Road R2 is also 3 AA's.
Oh, is it?
Yeah,
Is it?
The current VMAX is 2
VMAX,
9 volts.
that's what I was thinking.
VMAX Plus, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, so it's going to be able to switch between 50 cal and 68 caliber paint for the people interested in that. We probably won't get much use out of that here. But someone I'm sure would like that. Because right now for 50 cal, there really isn't anything available. So
what's the difference? Just the size of the ball?
Right, 50 cal is more what they're calling low impact nowadays. They kind of been changing the name here recently. So some indoor fields especially will offer low impact. And actually up in Indianapolis, kind of on the border of our scene, Indy Acres off of 465, which is the field a lot of people see, they're 50 cal only. So maybe they would be interested in something like this, but I doubt it. Because a rental gun isn't going to be able to outshoot a shake and bake hopper anyways. So the big draw for a lot of these guys is going to be hopefully the crazy good battery life. It's super light. They're saying it, from what they're saying in the videos, it is very light. And that's going to be a major selling point. Because that weight is up on top of the gun. You don't want that big heavy hopper, flopping around. I know a lot of people like the old Halo and Halo B hoppers and Reloader Bs. But they took, what was it, 4 or 6 AA's. They were pigs. The shell, the hopper was heavy. And they didn't hold a whole lot of paint, but they were so high. I know people were actually sawing the feed necks off on those to get them shorter, but those were heavy. And that was a lot of weight to swing them around. So that's why people would actually saw them, was to get the center of gravity down. There really wasn't much you could do for the weight. So yeah, that's an extravagance so far. We'll find out more next week and the week after what's really going to come out.
So what were because you were talking about the higher end guns. What kind of higher end guns did they come out with at World Cup that you had mentioned for, just...
World Cup, the big release was the G-Tech 160R. That was huge. There were some announcements, but nothing's really hit the market yet. So the G-Tech 160R, by Planet Eclipse, is going to have... it's got the Gamma core in it. The new bolt system that is super robust, because the the other high-end gun they have, the CS1, or is it CSL? I believe it's CS1. Correct me if I'm wrong. They found that gun was kind of finicky and responded to temperature change, so to speak. So the Gamma core was their way of fighting temperature change, and actually... Jack, the owner of Planet Eclipse, actually has videos of him pulling these out of deep freeze and shooting them to prove that it will shoot. So those are about $800.
I think you have a couple here.
Yeah, I have one here. people look at it, but generally shrug it off as being just outright way too much money. I actually don't tell a lot of the new players about that one, especially if their parents are in here. Because what'll happen is, if they come in there and see an $800 paintball gun, they would freak out and literally go wait in the car for their kid to come out, which is going to be bad for paintball. So usually when I have parents in there, I explain to them that, I can get them a gun, a nice gun, the nice shiny gun their kid's looking at for, under $100, goggles and a CO2, and they're going to be out the door for, 120, 140 and be playing. And then I remind them that, when I was a kid, a gun that recocked itself was $200 or more, and that was for a plastic one, like a Stingray 2.
I know I think when I started out and I bought my first gun from you, it's a Chaos. I actually still have that gun, and I'm looking to switch to a pump, but the Chaos 2 seems to be great. I mean, I think we've got 3 or 4 kids that have a Chaos, and it's a perfect price point, under $100, and it works great. They're easy to clean. They're easy to take apart if something goes wrong. So I would say, yeah. I mean, for me, that would be a great starter gun. I don't know about if you would recommend anything different, but.
Oh yeah. So I get that a lot. Kids coming in here wanting to know what should I get, and they tend to gravitate to the Tippmann, U.S. Army Project Salvo, which is like a 3.5 foot long gun with the stock and the barrel and the shroud and the magazine, and it's got a lot going on.
Yeah, it looks like a machine gun, right?
Right, it looks like a fully dressed machine gun. And these kids, it's so funny because they're 8 or 9 years old. They can barely see over my counter, and I screw an empty CO2 tank on it, and just tell them, is that heavy? And they're like, no, and they're already holding it by the tank, the barrel on the floor. I'm like, because that's going to be 2 pounds heavier when you have air in it and a full hopper, 2 or 3 pounds heavier. You're a pound of CO2, which is only 16 ounces, of course, which is about what a 20 ounce would take, and a hopper can weigh as much as that entire gun. So the Azoden Chaos, it's more compact. So it even though it's similar in weight, it's maybe 40% lighter, 50% lighter, from 3 pounds to 2 or 1.14 or whatever it is. It's so much more compact that weight is right in your hand. That weight is not stretched 2 feet out where it's on a lever, right? So it feels like 10 pounds. So that for the kids is something I definitely recommend. And the fruitier colors, the purples, the oranges, the greens, the blues, they love that. And a big part of paintball is getting them the gun they want and having the setup you want. People will trade in their gear for the new colors. James, it's absolutely true. So if the kids are feeling a certain color and their dad's wanting them to get an Army gun, I'll stop the dad right there. I was like, if this kid wants this bright orange Starburst gun, and you get him that Army gun, he's never gonna take care of it because it's not the one he wanted.
Right.
Right. They wanted the space gun. Just get it.
Yeah.
Now another reason I recommend that for the kids is, to me, they have less problems. I know one kid showed up with a brand new U.S. Army Alpha Black, and when he came out, 1 or 2 games in, his tank was dangling by the hose on the ground, where this gun, with the plastic body and the washers and the screws and bolts, it just rattles itself apart. And I know it's not Tippmann's fault. The U.S. Army line's actually made in China, or Taiwan, which is unfortunate. But yeah, those they seem to have more problems. The feed necks aren't very tight, and they kind of wobble side to side. The barrels are like .71. There's huge barrels. And we have trouble chronoing them high enough. Especially if it's cool outside on CO2 or on compressed air. It's hard to get some of those to shoot 300. It's rough. Whereas the Azoden Chaos, they're like rocks. I mean, they're so solid. There's no plastic, I don't believe either. There's on a Chaos?
No,
maybe the grip frames.
Right. Right.
Right. So those are rocks. The hardware is all stainless. They Loctite the ASA threads. They Loctite the striker. Yeah. So they're built right. Yeah, and the body's all CNC'd aluminum. They're not steel or whatever like a lot of the old guns where they would actually rust away on you. So yeah, these are aluminum. They get twice the air efficiency. Actually, as a matter of fact, when we would rent out a Tippmann gun, like we had a kid with that brand new U.S. Army, for example, we gave everyone 48 3000 high pressure air tanks, which is the normal rental size of tank. And he could shoot one hopper off, and he'd come back and be, at 700 or 800 psi in that tank and have to top it back off. And then we'd look at the kids coming back with the Azoden rentals, and they'd still be at 2000. And they shot the whole hopper just like that kid. So they could literally shoot 500 or a whole bag before they would need to top off their tank again. Whereas that Tippmann kid couldn't even take a pod out there because he wouldn't have the air to be able to shoot that paint, which is unfortunate. And for a new player especially, you don't have the money, or even as a kid, your parents might not have the money to buy you 2 or 3 or 4 tanks. So the Azoden, you're going to be able to get a big 20-ounce tank and shoot a whole case off. Whereas the Tippmann, you might get about half the box. Now, I'm sure someone's going to comment on this podcast that they have a Tippmann that shoots whatever. No, you don't. Not without massive tuning and valve and springing. And it'd take a lot of work. Those blowback Tippmanns, the velocity isn't truly adjustable by the spring. It just kind of has a bolt that goes into the air passageway and kind of blocks the flow. So the air just comes out other areas of the gun or is wasted instead. The Azodens, you can actually reduce the air that you use because you can actually adjust the spring itself. You have dual ball detents, which is another thing the Tippmanns don't have. They still use that hook on the bottom. The problem is when the gun is decocked, it'll actually lay on top of that, and over time it'll actually flatten that ball detent and wear it out. Whereas the Azoden ball detents, you just rotate them back, and as you shoot the gun, they center each other back out. So those you just keep rotating them. Whereas the Tippmanns you need to replace. Another thing with the ball detents on the Azodens are accessible from the outside, and the Tippmann guns they're not. You actually have to take the whole Tippmann apart. Those Project Salvos, it's a clamshell. You have to take it completely apart, and the kids literally cannot maintain their own guns with a Tippmann. If they started leaking or if they lost a bolt or screw, which is common, or if they ever tried to take it apart, they'd lose springs and clips, and it'd be a bad time. So I prefer they just brought them all to me, and then we would discuss trade-in on an Azoden. So just because I don't want to see him back in here.
So speaking of trade-ins, wrapping up the segment tonight, what kind of deals, what kind of events, what's Mad Matt got planned for the summer? What's going on? What's the haps, man?
Good question. So for this year, we're gonna build taller bunkers. We're probably gonna play less, to be honest. I've got a kid now. We'll probably do more open play and traveling around. I know 'cause we have several clubs that we play with. Shelbyville Paintball, South Central Indiana Paintball, the Mad Matt's officials we've been doing. Of course, we go to, we have guys going to Dark Armies, Battlegrounds, White River, Rock Pile. We play all around this area. And we do our best to bring new people in. So this year we're gonna stay on track with the compressed air. It took off really well. Everyone's really liking it. As of right now, I don't think I've ever charged anyone for air even. So yeah, let's keep that going. It's better for the guns, and everyone enjoys the high pressure air. And that's something we've never had in this area. It's something I dreamed about. I actually bought a compressed air tank years ago and could never use it because, Paintball Indiana was pretty much the only place I ever went that would ever fill the darn thing. So it was out of hydro, and I maybe filled it 3 times. CO2 is all we had in this area. So we'll probably have some tournaments popping up also. We have a Blackhawk tournament coming up. And we want it to be fair. Because a lot of kids around here that want to have a team or guys that want to play together and play a competitive style of paintball, they can't do that in Indianapolis, for example. Not easily. And we're talking guys that might be 7 feet tall or a little kid. You know, they're not going to be competitive in Indy. I don't care what you think. I've been in paintball too long and I know too much to know that's a lie. So what we're going to try to do to even the playing field out is everyone can only bring 200 paintballs. So the referee will fill everyone's hoppers before you go out for this Blackhawk tournament. 200 balls for everybody to keep everyone even on paint. And then we'll chrono the guns and have those ready. Everyone gets the same air tank, just a typical 48 3000. No one can use pods. Again, you only get what's in the hopper. Pretty much the only gear you're allowed to bring is your own mask and like a squeegee, or you can use a rental mask. So that's about as fair as it's going to get. It's the fairest paintball you're going to play.
And it's a 4 versus 4, right? I think it's how the tournament's set up, right?
Yeah, 4 versus 4 or 3 versus 3. It depends on what you guys want to do. You know, if we show up and we'll go over the rules and holler who wants to do what, and we'll see how many stragglers we get, like people that might show up with no teams and just want to walk on or stand in. We'll allow that. If someone wants to stand and play with someone else.
So we got that coming up March 4th, right? Down at your place at Mats?
March 4th, pending the weather or what's going on. You know, if we get a freak snowstorm or something, we'll push it back a weekend or two. I know we got some other events going on in the area that we want to hit, and so we won't stack. So, because again, we play all over. So, as far as the store itself this year, I am going to be changing hours soon. I haven't officially announced that yet. I guess I'll announce it on this podcast tonight. We will not be doing the extended Friday hours anymore. So sorry about that. That's when really we get a lot of people is Fridays, mostly Friday evenings. So we'll probably be opening around 5 or 6 on Fridays and staying open later. Saturday mornings we're still definitely going to do. And then during the week again, we did have it. We were opening earlier on like Tuesdays, for example. I don't think anyone ever took advantage of it. Because again, people want to play on the weekend, and they want to go get their gear, Friday night or Saturday morning and go play. People don't need a paintball store open at noon on Tuesday. Everyone's in school or working. So we're not really going to do that. And as far as the store, I was wrong on some of the product, and I'll admit that. We ordered gear that I thought was cool or that we thought was cool as players, and it never sold. We're going to sit on it forever, so we'll either have to clearance it out or get rid of it somehow, sell it online if we can, which is nearly impossible. So plan on us stocking more beginner style stuff, and it's a shame because the manufacturers do not make it. If any of you are listening at GI or Valken, please stock more beginner stuff. There's market out there. There's just no product for them. Thank you. Moving on. So yeah, we'll stock more dual pane lens masks. I'd like to get a lot more people on those because people do complain about fogging, and I do think it ruins the experience. Yeah, the guns. The Azodin seem to be the big sellers. I mean, people love them. We need to get the Tippmann pistols in here. People ask about those. Azodin, you talked about the KP3 pump earlier in this podcast, and people love them. I mean, for the price under $300, and they have all the big features: the purging on-off ASA, the clamping feed neck, the barrel kit. You get 2 barrel backs in there. Regulated dual pump arms. They shoot really good. It's a lot of gun for the money, and they're competitive. If you want to play pump, you can actually go play pump with that and be competitive. I know Sag's birthday is coming up the 25th for anybody who wants to come to that.
That's in Shelbyville, right?
Shelbyville that day, yep, at Drake's house, which we're all on a first or last name basis here. All
that information will be on the
yes.
Splat page. So
Splat. Yeah, he recommends or he requested that everyone use pump or mechanical, and we have a lot of guys picking those pumps up, and for good reason. So Zodin found a niche there and capitalized on it. unfortunately for guys that are into the nicer mechanical guns, there's not much available. Cause if you don't want an autococker, if you're really into blowbacks, there's not really a high-end blowback made anymore. Not that anyone has catered to, but yeah. So anyways, now we're rambling again. Yeah, the plans for this year just keep it going, get more people into the sport, and we might get into a little bit of airsoft. I don't want to alienate too many people here, but I do have 4 or 5 kids that just keep asking me if we're ever going to play airsoft, and we might delve into that a weekend or two and see if there's anybody that would want to do it. I know airsofters and paintballers don't really get along. Personally, I like the paintball crowd better. I think it's a better community. They work together more. They hang out more. Whereas the airsofters are more ex-military or kind of elitist value kids, Call of Duty kids, where they'll go out there and talk about real guns and kind of be mean to each other. Whereas paintballers, everyone out there is to do the same thing, have fun, and that's really what separates paintball from a lot of other competitive sports and hobbies. I know, like when I was in RC racing, no one would help each other out because they didn't want to give their secrets away. In paintball, they don't even care. I mean, you'll see some 40-year-old dude helping a 14-year-old kid or 13-year-old kid fix one little leak on their gun mid-battle. They'll pull their toolkit out and help a little kid. And
that seems to be the constant theme, though, in paintball. I know Billy Jack talked about it last week, how he was at Dreaded Legends out of Florida, and that was the same thing. This guy from Chicago, you couldn't tell by looking at him, but he looked like a rough looking guy, but he was the nicest guy you could ever meet. And they gave away a really high end paintball gun to this young gun. In the paintball community, it's great because they will do anything and everything to help you and to help grow the sport.
Oh, I agree. Yeah, and that's a big thing is keeping people into it because paintball. I mean, it'll bite you and you'll fall in love, and it's hard to quit. And you something you always dream about. I know I have flashbacks all the time, just reminiscing on all the good paintball I've played with my friends, and it's sad looking back. I have friendships that kind of ended with paintball, not because we fought, but had I known that was the last time we were going to play together, I would have taken more pictures or tried to make it last. You never know when your friends are gonna grow apart or move on to something else, or it's hard to get when you're growing up, 5 or 6 of you together again. So really, paintball, the friendships, the community is very, very, very strong. I know a lot of people ask me, how do I play? I don't know anyone that plays, and Sag, if we have him on an upcoming podcast, he was the same way. He didn't know anybody and didn't know how to get into it and didn't know how to join a team. And I get that question all the time. I don't have a team. Can I still come play? Please. And the answer is yeah, you do not need a team. Whenever we do Rec Ball or Mad Matt's official, we just get everyone out there, we go over the rules, and we split everyone up, red versus blue. And if one team dominates, we'll rebalance. We'll move a couple guys around until the whole rest of the game we'll play even games. So yeah, you don't need a team. And the sport is much more affordable now, so it's something you could do every weekend. Now, back then, if you were playing every weekend, you were rolling in dough. Nowadays, a case of paint's down, $40, and the guns, a nice gun now that you can play with all the time is $100. Back then, if a gun recocked, it was $200 to $300, and high-end guns, it wasn't uncommon to see a gun $1,000, $2,000 all the time. For a gun back then that would have been $2,000, like, a custom autococker or something would be, this new Valken code for $250 to $300 would outperform it all day long with brake beam eyes and all that going on. And then the paint too. Yeah, so we said it's $40. Back then, when I was a kid, it was 100 balls, which is half a hopper, was $7.99. So a case of paint, if you were buying it like that, would have been $160. Back then, that was in the mid-90s. So in today's money, for $40, that's definitely much more affordable. So yeah, there's not a better time to get into paintball. It's affordable. You know, you can make a lot of friends doing it. And with Facebook and these podcasts and social media now, you can really meet everyone and blog together and can get together and play this game.
So it sounds like, it just sounds like the community's growing. More people are playing. I know we got at least two good local small fields around here. I'm going to be working on one here pretty soon out in Millhausen. Matt, you've got yours about 4 miles outside of Greensburg. We'll be having some events coming up. So I think we've pretty much covered all the bases. So, I can't think of anything else. Do you have anything else that you want to mention, or?
Oh, yeah, just a reminder, definitely try to come out to Sag's birthday. We're throwing a huge party. Don't tell them. We're going to Buffalo Wild Wings after it. Or if you've never met us and you want to meet us, definitely just come and hang out and come meet us. We'll eat. We'll have a good time. We'll talk. We'll chat. We're telling you, we will all be best friends. Very tight community. And, just looking at who's going to be there at Sag's birthday so far, like Drake and his sons and a lot of these guys, me and Haggerty, we've been best buds forever. We all know each other, and we will take anybody in, no problem. Sag, a lot of these guys didn't even know Sag until a few months ago when he started playing, and now here we are throwing a huge birthday party for him.
And we do all kinds of stuff as a community. We've had several diaper parties for some of the guys. We actually had one for Matt, and we had one for another player, Zach, him and his girlfriend. So, we do a lot, and we help we try to help each other out the best we can. But that's just, I think, in general, that's just paintball.
Yeah, that's a lot of the paintball community shining for you. So I'd like to reiterate on that. We have done some charity work. We had a local guy that was in a pretty bad motorcycle accident and probably filing bankruptcy because of the medical bills. He didn't have insurance on the bike at the time he went down, so we did a game to help him out, gave him the entry fees for that. We did diaper parties for Zach, and then you threw that surprise one for me. That was crazy. Thanks again for that, by the way.
That's all right.
So yeah, if you're going through a tough time in your life and you're a paintballer or know someone needs help, definitely reach out. Let's schedule a game. Get the word out. Let's do it. Let's help these people out.
All right, Matt. Well, I'm going to wrap this up. So thanks for being on the show. Hopefully we can have you get on here sometime. Maybe after Extravaganza we can get talking about, if we hear about anything new coming out. But other than that, that's all Splat. Thanks.
Yep, thanks everybody. Thanks for having me.